Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for remaining with us. We are still talking the stock market here in Uganda, and we've been looking at some of the top gainers. We looked at Uganda Clays in detail. We looked at the history of this company. Now let's move to the second topmost gainer who came yesterday in the second place, Centum Investment Company. Now, Centum came in the second place, and he is right now trading at 316.49 Ugandan shillings. If you can just look at this graph and see, definitely we can tell that Centum went up by 4.56 Ugandan shillings, and that was a 1.46% appreciation in price to end the day with 316.49 Ugandan shillings. Now, Centum Investment, when we look at the history of this company for the last 10 months, looking at its share price, it has come from really a very high price here. Looking at months of September, August last year, 2021, the company was trading at prices as high as 520, 530, 550. And you can see on this particular date, the 13th of October, it was a Wednesday in 2021, Centum was trading at 556.94. Well, what is your opinion when you see that? From 556.94 in October to 316.49, almost 200 shillings lost. Well, that's a significant loss there. But Centum also was trading at lower prices before, but not as low as what we are seeing right now. And looking at that, based on this performance, we can see that the prices have been going down every now and then, as from the month of September 2021, when it was around 556.94 Ugandan shillings stock price. And we see a very sharp decline in December, by the end of November there, actually November, beginning of November. And then we see a steady kind of pricing that still went down when it came to the year 2022 in the month of March. We see that this particular price went down to as low as 400 shillings from 500. And then later on, we see in the month of May 2022, the price further dropped to over 300 shillings. And then before the month of July, in the month of June, we see that actually the price went to below 300 shillings to as low as 290 and 280 shillings. Now the Centum Company investment company came back in a daily gain of 4.56 Ugandan shillings, a 1.46% gain. Now Centum is a cross-listed company from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. It has been listed for quite some time on the Uganda Security Exchange. It has been listed since the 10th of February 2011 on the exchange, and trades under the trading name or the ticker symbol CENT, as you can see on the screen there, Centum at CENT. So the identification, international securities identification number for the company is KE, a couple of zeros, 265. And Centum Investment, currently out of the 18 listed equities, is coming in place number 13 on the stock market in terms of the most valuable stock. I said when we talk about stock value, we're talking at the market capitalization, the total value of shares, monetary value of shares, which makes it about 211 billion Ugandan shillings that are listed on the exchange. It makes 0.985% of the total market capitalization of the Uganda Securities Exchange. That is 21.8 trillion. It only takes 0.985%, almost less than 1%. Then we move to the trading prices. When we move down here to these trading prices, the trading results for the day, the last day of trading, we see that actually this current stock market, we see 665 outstanding shares. that are listed on the main board of the Uganda Securities Exchange, and they are worth 211 billion Ugandan shillings. And we see there was no volumes yesterday. The price just moved to up to 316, but there was no traded volumes. There was nothing like a dividend declared. There was nothing like earnings per share, just a price movement by about 300 shillings. Now, looking into the stock performances for the previous dates. Now, these dates indicate the trading volumes. Looking at the 20th of June 2022, we see that there was a volume of 200 shares. If my producer change the screen there for you to just see the volumes, the stock performance for the Centum Investment Company, we see that on the 20th of June, we see 200 shares at exactly 287.15 Ugandan shillings ending price. And this was a loss on the 20th of June. And we see that this loss was about 23.64% of that. And then we see a 23.64% that came as a result of an 88.92 Ugandan shilling change. And on the 7th of April, where this same year, we see 2,700 shares that were traded, and we see the closing price was 376.07. But this was still a loss, unfortunately, for this company, and then a 14.58% loss there. On the 3rd of March, there were 211 shares that were traded on this counter, and we see 440.27 as the closing price, and the change was negative 124.46 Ugandan shillings, and the percentage change was 22.04%. Then on the 1st of December 2020, that was another volume traded of 200 shares, and these represent about 48.51% still drop. The only rise we see that happened on the market after a certain trade was actually on 10th of December 2019, where 45 shares was traded, closing the market, you can imagine, at 1,096. And this was after a particular gain of 10%, of actually 1%, and that was about 10.86 Ugandan shillings gain. Now, this data represents the stock performance of this particular counter. If you look through by yourself, this counter traded 200 shares, 2,700 and 211 shares since the beginning of the year. Those are the only shares in this year that have been traded on this particular counter. And then when we look at 2020, we are seeing only one trading volume, that is 200 shares, and these 200 shares were traded on the 1st of December 2020. And then before that, we had 45 shares that were traded on 10th of December 2019. So this is the average volume that we are seeing being traded on this particular stock in just over the last 3 years. Is it something you can invest in? That's up to you, well, as an individual. But we can see that not much activity is seen on this particular counter for several reasons, because people have several reasons why they invest in certain companies and they don't invest in some. And we see Centum Investment is actually a company that hasn't had much activity on the market, and maybe perhaps that explains even that very large drop and progressive drop in prices that we have seen over the last couple of months on this particular counter. Now, let's look into the other performance indicators for this particular counter. When we look into the particular prices for given debts, like we have seen, the counter has seen a loss of about almost 700 shillings in 3 years, because as you have seen on a certain date, they traded over 1,086 Ugandan shillings per share, and right now they're trading at 300 shillings. So meaning people who bought shares in 2019 at that 1,000 stock price have lost a value of over 700 shillings in average. Now, monitoring the 1 week performance, we see that there was an increase in the 1 week performance of 0.67%. There was also an increase in the 4 week performance, that's monthly performance, of 10.2%. So now we are looking at the recent. And we are almost usually more interested in the recent, because you never know how things will turn out maybe in the future, perhaps for the better. Then on the 3 months performance, we see about 15%, and that is a decline in the 3 months performance. Then in the 6 months, we see a 28.9% drop as well. And in the 1 year performance, just 1 year ago, we are seeing a 41.1% drop in prices. And in the year-to-date performance, we are seeing a 28.9% drop in prices there. Now, Centum closed the last trading day with 287.15. That was the day before, and that was on the Uganda Security Exchange after a drop of 23.6%. So meaning the previous day of trading before yesterday was actually another loss that was witnessed by this counter. Centum began the year with a price of 444.82, not 1,000. It's not 4,000. It's 444.82. But since it has lost a value of 28.9% of its price valuation, ranking it 15th on the shareholders, of course, on the Uganda Security Exchange in terms of year-to-date performance. So very poor, honestly, very poor year-to-date performance there, losing value by over 28%. Excuse me. Now, however, all is not dull and gloomy for shareholders. Your fears can be allayed by the 10% increase in Centum Investment share prices since June 20th, which is the second best on the Uganda Security Exchange in terms of this performance for the 1 month. Centum Investment is the 10th most traded stock on the Uganda Security Exchange over the past 3 months, and Centum has a trading volume of over 2,900 shares that are valued at 1.12 million over the same period, with an average of 46 shares traded per session. A volume high of 2,700 was achieved on the 7th of April for the same period. And of course, we can see that based on the performances that we have witnessed. Now, Centum Investment Company, Public Limited Company, was founded on the 31st of March 1967, and it operates in the financial services sector, specifically the investment services industry. Centum Investment Company contracts almost about 1,082 employees, and the company is led by Mr. James Mwirigi Moria, who is the Chief Executive Officer and the Managing Director since 2008. The company's board of directors is chaired by Dr. Donald Kaberuka, who is a 70-year-old gentleman, and is composed of a 10 board member list. Of course, we can find that on the company website as well. Now, the Centum Investment Company, issuers of the stock of Uganda Security Exchange, have 7 market competitors who are also engaged in the financial sector and the investment services sector. And these competitors include National Insurance Company Corporation, the DFCU Bank, that is Development Finance Company of Uganda, KCB, Bank of Baroda, Equity Bank Limited, and Jubilee Holdings, as well as Stanbic Bank Uganda. And those are some of the people that are competing with this particular counter on the stock market. But you can actually invest in Centum if you are a long-term person and you feel your sentiments and your intuition says that you can actually make money out of the stock. It's okay. But based on the year-to-date performance, the company is not doing so well in terms of performing on the market, but promising as well. We cannot predict the future entirely, but we leave it to you to choose whether to invest or not. Now, when we go to the losing side, On the losing side, as we saw yesterday on the, earlier on the market, we had Wumeme, who came at the bottom, whom we are going to also look at later on briefly. And then we had Jubilee Holdings Limited at 7,920. We had also New Vision Printing and Publishing Company at 155. And we had Stanbic Bank Uganda coming in at 20.5. And we had Equity Bank Limited, who came in at 1,418. And East African Breweries Limited, who came in at 4,441. Now, these losers here, I give you a chance to know which company you're going to buy stock in, because definitely as the stock goes down, it is time to buy. Even if you're a shareholder, it's not time to sell. Don't panic sell. That is the worst decision you can ever make on the stock market. Remember, for example, at 202.00 at a 6.51% drop, is one of the counters that began this year very strong. Of course, with shareholders very enthusiastic after the company declared a certain amount of dividend that would be given to its shareholders, amounting to over 54.9 Ugandan shillings for every share. And NSSF, who is the biggest shareholder for that matter in Wumeme, took away the biggest share of over 73 billion Ugandan shillings worth of dividend. And we see this company coming down to these prices. If I were you, I would buy some of this stock, because definitely Wumeme is not going down forever. Wumeme is not going down forever. Jubilee Holdings are quite a little bit more expensive at 7,900, but it's also a company that has been trading in the 8,000s for quite some time. But because of these high prices, usually the stocks of high prices are not as attractive as the stocks of low prices. Why? Basically, people don't want to invest a lot of money, in stock markets, and that is okay. It's okay to invest less, so that when that money maybe reduces in value, you don't feel a lot of pain, also, because you don't want to put school fees, you don't want to put your daily income into the stock market. That would be insane, because these are very volatile markets, very turbulent, very diverse. They change a lot, and you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. But it's also another opportunity for you. Now, for New Vision for some time this year was very stable. If you look at its stock at 155, and then suddenly, because of maybe some few pressures here and there, we saw it going up to 160. But it came down back to 155, where we have been, of course, for quite some time on this particular stock, and that was after a 3.12% drop. If I were you, I would still also consider one of these stocks here in New Vision for someone who wants to diversify their risk. Then Stanbic Bank, definitely at 20.5. He came down from 21 yesterday, I think 21.5, if I'm not mistaken, to 20.5 at 2.38% drop. But he also provides very good future prospects, especially these 2 years have not been easy for the company because of not being able to give dividends. But later on, definitely the Bank of Uganda lifted their ban that had been imposed on all financial institutions not to have many cash outflows, or any cash outflows for that matter, because of course, COVID-19 recovery, capital reservation matters, and so on. So they have not been issuing dividends, and recently they were able to issue finally a dividend, but it was a subsidized dividend, if I could say, because before 2021, we saw that the company had already promised a dividend of over 150 billion, if I'm not mistaken, for the year just 2020. But that was cut down to 50 billion for 2020 and 50 billion for 2021, making it a total of 100 billion for the 2 years, which was, of course, shared by the shareholders, who are already happy right now. But now it's providing another opportunity for you to buy, meaning at 20,000, you can buy stock as much as 1,000 shares. And meaning if they declare, for example, this year, they declared a dividend, if I'm not mistaken, a dividend of about 1.5, 1.6, meaning that times 1,000, you walk away with your 1,600. But if you have more shares, if you have 10,000 shares, you walk away with over 16,000, and so on and so forth. Yeah, but really we are not looking in the short term, we are looking in the long term, and we don't know where this stock could be in the next 3, 4, 5 years at Stanbic Bank. And then Equity Bank Limited also at 1,400, not a very cheap stock there, but also a very attractive one for you to buy in. And East African Breweries as well, a very stable stock there, a very great company, the biggest brewery in East Africa. It has 90% stake in Uganda Breweries here in Uganda. It has over 70% stake in Kiboko Brewery in Tanzania and so on. It's also an attractive stock. So consider this for buying, and then you can consider the other gainers for sale if at all you already have some stock there. We're going to another short break, and when we return, we look into the other performers on the market, a little bit about Umeme here and there, and later we shall wind up with the entire market, how it performed, and we shall go into the Nairobi Stock Exchange, and then later on wind up with the top stories. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.